And thank you for joining us for another hour of Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I want to introduce a very special guest, somebody that maybe many of us haven't been acquainted with in the past, or have run shoulder to shoulder and actually talked to. Right now, I have with me an IRS agent, and her name is Peggy Riley, and I want to welcome Peggy to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So, as we were talking off camera, I just wanted to, I pointed out, geez, an IRS agent, this could be good, or it could be going like to the dentist office, right?
Well, no, it's painless, and I'm the spokesperson. So I do shows like this throughout New England, travel around and do shows like this and radio interviews and also newspaper interviews to try to get the word out to taxpayers that there's services available out there for them,
Right.
to try to help them understand the whole tax process and to make tax filing a little bit easier.
Excellent. Well, we're definitely glad that you're here. Just a little bit of background about you a little bit. You've been doing this for?
A long time. I've been with the IRS for 28 years. I started when I was in college as an intern, and I was editing the internal newsletter at that point and worked my way up to now I'm the Internal Revenue Service spokesperson for the whole New England area, and I also cover Maryland and the District of Columbia.
Okay. Have you ever been involved with the auditing process?
I have not been involved with the auditing process. I've stayed the whole time in the public affairs office. So I've edited the newsletter. I have run the electronic filing program. I was, got it started running in the Boston area and worked with a lot of tax preparers, getting them on board to file electronically. So I had some experience with that. And then I moved in from there to be the spokesperson and dealing with sending out news releases, answering media inquiries, and doing interviews and press conferences and things like that.
Right. So you're in the thick of things right now as far as getting the word out. You have to be constantly upgrading your status as an agent, right? I mean, continual education.
Right. Well, we do a lot of that on our own, just by reading and learning things as we're going along, or doing some research for. I get some complicated inquiries at some points, and have to do a lot of research on exempt organizations and payment plans, and there's all kinds of different things that we could touch on.
Right.
In this job.
So, what are some of the most pressing things that you think the public should know? Starting with, well, I have a question here. Are there many tax changes? Are there many things that have changed in the tax laws that people should be aware of?
Well, actually, for this year, it's a good year. There's not a lot of changes. There's a few things. First of all, there's an extended deadline. So we have now until Tuesday, April 17th to file our returns this year. And that's because the 15th falls on a Sunday, and Monday is Emancipation Day in the District of Columbia. And when there's a holiday in D.C., we all get an extra day. So we all have until Tuesday, midnight Tuesday, April 17th to file our returns. So that's the biggest change.
Yay, it's like sleeping late, right?
Exactly. Procrastinators will love this.
Yes.
They get an extra weekend and a couple of extra days. They'll love it.
Yeah.
And then there's some new forms. There's the form 8949 for your capital gains and capital losses, which you need to figure out and then carry that over to your Schedule D. So that's a new form for some taxpayers. It won't affect a lot of people, but anybody that is taking any capital gains or losses will have to fill that out this year. There's some credits that are expiring. There's the education credit and the energy credit for making some energy efficient improvements to your home. This is the last year that you'll be able to claim some of those credits, so you want to take advantage of those if you're qualified, unless Congress goes ahead and extends some of those things into future years.
Yeah, who knows what they're going to do.
Well, that's true, and it could be a big year for changes because there's a lot of things that are coming up that are set to expire that were part of the Recovery Act a few years back.
Right.
So now we're coming towards the end of those, so there may be another big tax package on its way. We don't know.
So, just a little bit of clarification on that. So if you want to do basically a home improvement or something to that effect, or what, get the weathering, stripping down, or?
If you're making some energy efficient, well, if you made some energy efficient improvements, because the return we're filing now is for what you did last year.
That was my point, yeah.
Yeah, so if you made some energy efficient improvements, you want to look into and see if you qualify for the energy credits. Right. Now, the credit was reduced for this year. In past years, it was $1,500. It's now only $500. So if you took advantage of it in the past, you may not qualify now, but it's worth taking a look at.
So talk to your congressman or woman to get those
extend
extended.
some of those things, yeah.
Right.
We're going to be losing some of the education credits. There's a teacher's deduction. It's an expense that teachers that pay for their own supplies for school can take right off their tax return. They could take a $250 deduction. That's also expiring. Some of the energy credits are expiring from making those energy efficient improvements. We no longer have the first-time home buyer credit. I'm sure they're probably not going to redo that, but you never know. That's another change, too, is that people that got that credit, the first-time home buyer credit, in 2007, the first year that it was available, had to start repaying that credit last year. So this year they have to make another payment. They have to pay 15 years in a row to pay that credit back.
Is there any good news?
Well, these things are still available for the return that you're filing now, so that is good news.
That's good news.
So if you have children in college, or even yourself, if you went back to school because you're out of work and you want to change occupations, you may qualify for the education credits. If you made those energy efficient improvements, you may qualify for those credits as well. There's a lot of credits and deductions out there for people that they might not be aware of.
What about all these gas prices that are going up through the roof? I think it's 51 cents or something like that?
Right. The standard mileage rate for business miles right now is 51 cents. We usually change it once a year. Well, maybe not change it, but we make the adjustments once a year. And it's done by an outside company called Runsheimer's International. And they take into effect the cost of gas prices, the cost of maintaining your car. There's a number of different things that go into it, not just the gas prices.
Right.
And that's usually set in the fall. Now, it's not unlike the IRS over some of these past few years when we've had really high gas increases to change it partway through.
Right.
So that is something that could happen. Haven't heard anything about it yet, but that may be something that's coming down the line.
Talk about hitting the wallets, though. That's really crunching a lot of businesses, from what I understand.
Well,
and
and
it goes up to $4.50
I did hear one report where they said because part of it is because the economy's better, so the demand's better.
Well, okay. All right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's not unlike the IRS that they could adjust it halfway through the year. And that would be one of the things that's my job of getting the word out to taxpayers to let them know that that has increased.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the common mistakes that people make when it comes to their taxes, their responsibilities, whatever. Guide us through some of the common mistakes that we can avoid.
Well, some of the common ones are the simplest things. Forgetting to sign your return, especially if it's a joint return where both spouses have to sign that return. You got to make sure that they both sign it when they send it in, especially if you're sending it in near the deadline, because if we have to send that whole return back because it's missing a signature, then you could miss the deadline and then be late and face late filing penalties. And also Social Security numbers. You want to make sure you have your Social Security number correct, your spouse is correct, and any dependents that you're claiming. You want to make sure all those numbers are correct. Sometimes people transpose numbers or just put in the incorrect number, and that would delay processing, and it can deny a lot of your credits and deductions that are based upon what you're claiming on your return. A lot of these mistakes are alleviated if you file electronically.
Right. It doesn't let you file unless they're all filled in.
Well, right, they're all filled in, but also, we have some upfront built-in checks and we accept the return or reject it back to you. So if we run it against our database and see something's wrong right away, we can get it back to you quickly, so you can get it back in. And you don't have to sign the return, obviously, if you're filing electronically.
Right.
And some of the other things are missed credits and deductions. One of the biggest ones that people miss is the earned income tax credit. And that's a credit for low-income working individuals and families. And a lot of people don't claim it. Actually, 4 out of 5, we estimate, that qualify for it actually claim it. But 1 out of 5 doesn't claim it, and they don't get advantage of this credit.
Does it cost extra to do electronic filing?
Well, in some cases it could, but there's a lot of free programs out there that people might not be aware of. Right on the IRS website, irs.gov, you can click on the Free File logo, and it will bring up a list of about 20 companies that in partnership with the IRS are offering free electronic filing to taxpayers whose income is $57,000 or less. So if you qualify for that, you just click on one of those companies. It will bring you to their website, and then you'll be able to file for free. Now, in some cases, if you have a state filing requirement, they may charge you for the state, but the federal return would be free. You can't go directly to those companies' websites. You have to go through the IRS site in order to qualify for that free filing. We also train volunteers that set up community sites. They're called volunteer income tax assistance sites and tax counseling for the elderly sites. In conjunction with AARP, we work for the elderly ones. And they're located in senior centers or community centers, local libraries, community colleges. We train these volunteers specifically in tax laws that affect those types of people, the lower income and the seniors. And then they'll help you prepare your return for free, and in most cases, file it electronically for free.
Oh, nice. In Nashua, there are locations?
Yes, you can go right on irs.gov, and it will ask you for, you'll want to look for the volunteer site link, and then it will ask you for your zip code, and it will give you a list of all the sites within your area.
Oh, no, that's very helpful information, I'm sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a free service. They usually guide the income around $50,000 or less. You know, it can't be a real complicated return. Obviously, you're not going to bring in all your books and records from your small business to these volunteers. But if it's a simple, straightforward return, they'll help you with it.
Oh, interesting. Well, that brings
See,
me...
we bring good news.
Yes, you do bring good
And you
news.
were afraid.
Well, I'm not afraid. Common mistakes. Why should I have a professional do my taxes versus doing it myself?
Well, you know, more and more people are realizing that they can do it themselves with these electronic programs because it actually guides you through. Based on some information that you input right at the beginning of the return, it's going to ask you questions about credits and deductions that you're probably not even aware of. So right at the beginning, it's going to start asking you things. And you really get a great return just doing it yourself. And there's so many ways of doing that, you know, through the free file program or if you purchase software and whatnot, that you can do it yourself. But if you decide that you want to go to a preparer, if you have a somewhat complicated return or you're just afraid to do it yourself, you want to be sure of who you're choosing to give your information to. Obviously, you're giving all of your personal information, and you want to make sure that the person that you're giving it to is reputable.
Right.
First of all, you want to look out for people that are advertising, I can get you the biggest refund ever. How do they know that? How do they even know that you're going to get a refund before they even look at your materials? So
that's a
right
red
there,
flag.
you should be suspect of that. You know, nobody can promise you that you're going to get a refund before they even look at what you have. For all they know, you could owe money. You want to make sure that they don't take any credits or deductions that you're not qualified for. So if you don't understand something on the return that they're preparing, make sure you ask questions about it because ultimately, even though they prepare the return, once you sign it as the taxpayer, you're responsible for whatever's on that return, even if they prepare it. So if we later send you a tax bill because we disallow something that you took on your return, you're the one that's going to be stuck with the tax bill, not the preparer. You also want to make sure that they're going to be around after the filing season. You know, a lot of our notices don't go out until way after April, and sometimes you see these preparers are around from January to April, and then they're off on vacation or, you know, they're nowhere to be seen anymore.
Right.
So you want to make sure that they're going to be around to help you answer any questions that you may have if you get that notice. Now, over the past couple of years, the IRS has started to regulate tax preparers. So you may have heard that now preparers have to have a practitioner taxpayer identification number. It's what we call a PTIN. So they register with the IRS and they have to have this PTIN. So that's another thing you should be asking the preparer for is to make sure they have an IRS PTIN.
And if they don't?
Then they shouldn't be filing your return.
Ooh.
They now must register with the IRS.
That's interesting.
Yes. You know, you've heard of enrolled agents and CPAs
That's what I was talking about earlier,
Yes.
enrolled agents,
Yeah.
right?
So those, they're already in societies and they have to pass exams to be of that status. So this is an attempt to regulate all those other preparers that are out there that really didn't have any regulations or any societies that they belong to where they could actually have to pass an exam and be registered with that organization. So now they get this PTIN from the IRS, and this year, starting this year, they have to now take an exam, and they have to pass that exam. They have until 2013 to pass the exam, and if they don't pass, then they're going to lose their PTIN, and they won't be able to prepare returns anymore.
And that PTIN follows you around the country, so if
Right.
The person who prepared your taxes with the PTIN
Right.
Decides to move to Texas.
Right, he's still your preparer for that return, right. Right, so you want to make sure that they are registered with the IRS, and then so they will have to pass the exam by 2013, and then there's also going to be some continuing education requirements. And this is an attempt to, you know, help protect the taxpayer, to make sure that the person that they're giving all their information to is educated and knows the tax laws and can do the best job for them.
Interesting. Do you have anything to do with the, obviously the IRS collects money from towns and stuff?
Well, there is some payments through towns. There's some excise taxes. There's not as much as your regular employers with your employment taxes that are taken from the employees and paid over to the IRS. But there are some special town and municipality taxes that do have to be paid.
And of course, they have their own certain regulations that they're responsible for as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. Talk about some services that the IRS provides.
Well, first of all, our website is great. I mean, you can get everything that you need right there at irs.gov. You can download forms and publications. That's one more thing that's new, too, is over the past couple of years, we are not sending out tax packages anymore. So if you're waiting to get that package in the mail, you're not going to get it from the IRS. So if you still want a paper form, you can't come to a local IRS office, but we suggest you just download it from the website. Or you can call a toll-free line, the forms line, which is 800-829-3676, and they'll mail it to you. That actually spells out tax form.
You've done this before.
You can tell.
Yeah.
So you can download forms from the website. There's a lot of good applications on there as well. You can check on your refund once you filed. There's an application called Where's My Refund? There's also an installment agreement application on there. So if you end up owing tax and you want to set up a payment agreement with the IRS, you could do it right online on our website. It's an online payment agreement application. And you'll get an instantaneous reply whether or not we accept it. In most cases, we do.
Right.
There's a lot of things right there, right on our website, and most taxpayers can find that they can get the answers they need right there.
All right, so somebody finds themselves really in a bad spot, and they realize, my gosh, I owe $10,000 to the IRS, and I can't pay it.
Well, the best thing to do is to make sure you file that return. Some people think, if I don't file my return, they won't know I owe this money. Well, that's even worse, because the failure to file penalty is even higher than any of the other penalties.
Right.
So if you have that return done, get it in. And get it in as soon as you can. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can get an installment agreement with the IRS. First of all, you can attach a Form 9465, the installment agreement request, right with your tax return. Send it right in with it and say, this is what I think I can pay each month. And then you'll get a letter back from the IRS saying whether or not it's agreeable. Now, obviously, it has to be a pretty reasonable amount, so that you'll pay off that amount in a good amount of years.
Right.
But in most cases, we accept most installment agreements. Or, as I said, you can go on irs.gov and do that online application right there. Or you can call and speak with somebody. If you file your return and then you get a notice that you owe the tax, make sure you call that number on the notice. The worst thing to do is just put it off and think that it's going to go away, because it doesn't go away, and actually it will get worse.
Right. And all kinds of penalties.
Well, there's penalties. There's a failure to file penalty. There's a failure to pay penalty. There's interest. And then we have a whole collection process. So if you continue to ignore this tax that's owed, we can place liens or levies against property and paychecks. And we can seize property. In the real egregious cases, we could seize property and actually auction it if we have to. So we have all of those provisions available to us. We don't like to use them unless we need to. And obviously, it would be in the most egregious cases where we would.
Oh, interesting. I had a number of questions here. Where can taxpayers get more information? They can get it on your website, most likely.
We do have a toll-free line, too, for people that don't have computer access. They can call us at 1-800-829-1040, and that actually spells out tax 1040. So they can give us a call, or we have local offices located throughout the state where you can actually come in and speak with somebody if you get a notice or you want to pick up some forms and just would rather speak to somebody in person. You can come into one of our offices as well.
Okay, let's talk about scams. There has to be a lot of scams out there, and how do people protect themselves from that?
Well, the scams have gotten different over the last few years. Before, it used to be you'd get a phone call or you'd get a letter in the mail impersonating the IRS saying, oh, we refigured your tax and all you have to do is send this back with a payment or with your account number or something to that effect. Now we're seeing a lot of email scams. We call them phishing scams. So they're actually sending emails to taxpayers looking for personal information. They're telling you it's from the IRS, and they're saying if you click on this link, you are owed a refund, click on this link, provide us this personal information, and we'll send you the refund. They're looking for bank account numbers, social security numbers, a lot of personal information that the IRS wouldn't be asking for. And in most cases, the IRS does not correspond by email. So if you haven't heard from us through the regular mail or through a phone call, and all of a sudden you get an email, then it's probably not really the IRS, and you shouldn't be giving out your personal information to anybody. We ask that you do forward that email to us at phishing@irs.gov, and that's phishing@irs.gov.
Right.
So that we can try to shut that site down and stop it from being, infiltrated to other people as well.
When people are corresponding with you, if you're corresponding via the email, that's one thing. But if they send out a letter, should every time they send out a letter, should that always be certified?
If they're sending a letter to us,
Yeah, or sending a letter or making a payment.
no, you don't have to send it certified. If you're paying with a personal check, you'll get the check back, in the mail. You can do an electronic debit. You can also pay by credit card now as well. We have all kinds
You're
of
making
ways.
it too easy.
Exactly.
Well, the reason I ask that is if, for instance, you send a check in the mail, and you really did send it, and it got lost, you're in trouble.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't say trouble per se. I mean, but right, if you miss a payment on your installment agreement or you miss sending in a payment, you can be hit with some penalties and fees.
How many payments can you miss on your installment?
Well, usually the installment will stop if you do miss a payment. However, if you contact the IRS and let them know, I need another week, I need an extra couple of weeks, we normally can extend that time. And, it's a case-by-case basis, so I can't tell you that every time you call up, we're going to extend it for you. And obviously, you can't do it every single month. But we're here to work with you. We don't want to get people into a bad situation either. We want to try to make it as easy as possible on them to pay off whatever tax debts they may have. So get in touch with us. The key here is to make sure you get in touch with us as quickly as possible.
The whole idea of you going around is basically to let people know that the IRS is not necessarily the agency to be afraid of, but you can communicate with them.
Right, definitely. The best thing to do, if you find yourself in any situation with the IRS, is to get in touch with us so that we can try to work it out to each of our best abilities. In some cases, you may just need a couple of extra months to pay the whole entire bill off.
Right.
And we'd be able to extend that. But, when we're sitting here not hearing from you, then we don't know what the situation is and why you're avoiding the tax. So that's when the other avenues of the collection process can come into play. So the most important thing to do is get in touch with, if you get a notice, get in touch with the people on the notice. If not, call the toll-free number, come into one of our offices, try to set up an installment agreement online, but make sure you work with us.
Now, are there training seminars for people to actually go to get more acquainted, or it's pretty much, it's all online? For instance, are there clinics in town? You want to start a new business, is there...
Well,
is there a place where a prospective new business can go to and say, I just want to do everything right?
We do have, for small businesses, we have an organization called Taxpayer Education and Communication that deals with small business issues. And they do, in some towns, do small business workshops in conjunction with maybe SBA or some small business local councils that may be set up. So we do some of that. We also have a lot of online small business workshops. We have a lot of resources. If you go on our website, irs.gov, there's an individual section for the individual taxpayer, but then there's a small business section, and that's dedicated all to small businesses. And there's a whole resource center from applying for your employer tax identification number to hiring employees to what tax forms you need to file and when, calendars to remind you of when different payments are due. So there's a vast amount of information, and you're right, it can be pretty complicated. But we do have some of those workshops that actually take place out in the community, and we also have a virtual workshop right on our website.
Interesting. So you don't necessarily, when you're starting up a business, have to go to a CPA or something?
Not necessarily. A lot of the businesses start out very small. If you think it's going to be a big business, then you might want to get somebody that would help you with the books and records, obviously. But if it's pretty small and you think you can handle it, there's a lot of resources right there to help you.
All right. Interesting. Is there anything else you want our listeners or followers to know?
Well, just as we said before, we don't want people to be afraid of us. We do these types of interviews to get the word out that, the tax law can be pretty complicated, but there's a lot of help out there for you, and we want you to take advantage of it. And there's a lot of free help. Whether it's the IRS website at irs.gov or our toll-free line at 800-829-1040 or our volunteer sites that are out in the community, or even our walk-in offices where you can come in and meet face-to-face with us. We want you to know that there's resources there to help you.
Interesting. Do you ever go to high schools or elementary schools and say, hey, I'm an IRS agent?
Actually, I haven't done it in quite a while. I did do it in the past. But we do have an education group that does, we have a program where we deal with high school students, introducing them to the tax law.
Interesting.
Because some of them may be filing for the first time.
So if somebody wants to work for the IRS, what type of education would they require?
Well, in most cases, we look for a bachelor, at least a bachelor's degree. Accounting is really important if you want to get into, being a revenue agent or a revenue officer in one of those compliance jobs. And actually, in most of the jobs now, they're looking for some accounting background.
Okay, so you, with experience then?
Well, not necessarily experience. We actually hire a lot of students right out of college.
Okay.
We hire a lot of students right out of college. We have a recruiter that goes to different colleges and works with the accounting departments.
Yeah.
And a lot of them get some experience through the volunteer programs, because that's one of the ways that we partner with the colleges to set up some of those sites.
So you have volunteer programs. So
Yes.
you get people's feet wet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, who goes to college to become an IRS agent?
Well, they may not think that. They may think accounting, but they may like 40 hours better than 50 or 60 at one of your big accounting firms.
Right, yeah, good perks, good benefits.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's good. You must run into some hostilities from time to time. How do you deal with that?
Well, yeah, on occasion, there's always the people out there that just don't like the tax law, don't understand it, don't want to pay taxes, and we try to explain to them it is a voluntary system. You are kind of on an honor system filling out that tax return. However, if, that honor system breaks and we find out that you did something wrong, there are some consequences. And in many cases, some of these protesters, if you will, or people that, don't agree with the tax laws, have been thrown into jail and face significant penalties. So there are penalties for, not dealing with the tax laws.
You're talking about the extremists.
Extremists,
Yeah.
definitely,
Okay.
right. But, it is complicated, but there's a lot of free help out there for you.
All right, let's talk a little politics, if you don't mind. Can I throw, what do you think about a flat tax?
We really don't have an opinion. I mean, we work for the government. Obviously,
Right.
we can't have an opinion one way or another.
Would it simplify things, though? Would it seem to?
I don't know. Year after year, we try to simplify the tax law, and
Yeah,
it's just huge and it's complicated. But
yeah.
I don't think there's one easy, simple answer for that.
Yeah, well, I figured I'd throw that out there. Doesn't hurt to try, does it?
That's right.
Well, there are myriads of pages that people can go through. I guess there's 40,000 pages.
At least.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
That's amazing. But well, I'm glad you came to the show. Again, how can people get in touch with, I know you said it a number of times.
Well, first of all, the IRS website,
Right.
irs.gov. Make sure you don't go to .com or .org. There are some sites out there that are made to look like the IRS site, but they're not. It's irs.gov. And the toll-free line, once again, is 1-800-829-1040, tax 1040. And we encourage people to, go there to the website or to get in touch with us if you have any questions. We're here to help.
Oh, I do have one more question. At what age do you start paying taxes?
Well, it depends. I mean, you could have some investment income very young age, depending on, if you're in a wealthy family and have some investment income. So could be, right from the start.
Really?
But most people start probably getting introduced to the tax system maybe in like late grade school or high school when you're first getting a job.
So those 16-year-olds that are getting a paycheck,
It's really important that they realize, how to fill out that W-4 when they're starting that job, how, what taxes to actually have withheld if they need to have anything withheld. A lot of the students are exempt from withholding, so they don't really need to have anything withheld. But if they do have something withheld, they want to make sure they file that return at the end of the year because they're probably going to get it back.
let me camp here for a second. So there are some exemptions for kids who say they're busboys or busgirls?
Yes, if they're still, full-time students, there could be some exemptions there.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, welcome to the real world, kids.
Exactly. Exactly, but, when they're sitting down and filling out all that paperwork for that first employer, one of the things they'll need to do is a W-4, which is your taxes.
Interesting. Well, that's great. Peggy, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I appreciate you having me.
And if you'd like to come again, we'd love to have you.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And that's it for this time with Peggy from the IRS. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach her, or the IRS, I should say. And we want to thank you for joining us here for another half hour of Gate City Chronicle. Until next time.